Hi. Have you ever tried to help somebody and it didn't work out? Have you ever tried to do some good and the person just wasn't interested, or saw something that was a situation that was in need of love and you didn't have an opportunity to do some good, or maybe you missed an opportunity? It could be really painful. 12 of these God shots have to do with love because love is important beyond words. But as we go into these different God shots about love, I didn't want you to think that I'm somebody who has it all together, and I'm somebody who's never been hurt in a situation where I tried to love or wasn't able to. And I'd like to share with you a couple of situations in my life where I either blew it or I just couldn't do any better. Okay, I couldn't do what I really wanted to, or whatever. See this little boy? Love this kid. He's at a place down in Peru called the Hogar San Francisco de Assis. It's founded and run by Dr. Tony Lazara. And I bring a group every summer to visit there and help Dr. Tony out with his kids. My Spanish is really limited. As you go through these God shots, you may discover that my English is also kind of limited. But anyway, so interacting with the other kids, I mean, not knowing much Spanish, I use an interpreter, I know a few words, but he has a whole section of his home that is just children, babies. And they don't need any language skills, and they need a lot of love and attention, so I will usually hang out with them. And this little guy, he was kind of stuck in the crib. They have playtime a couple of times a day where they bring the kids out of the cribs and we play little toys with them and bring them to the park and things like that. But this little boy couldn't go anywhere. And as you can see, his legs are in a brace and he just couldn't go anywhere. So I would spend hours with him. And we just had so much fun. He was so easily amused. There was a ball in his crib, and he would love to just throw it out of the crib onto the floor. And I would make a face of like, oh, I can't believe this. And he would laugh because he was tormenting me, and he enjoyed that. And we just did that for hours, and there was just a lot of love that was there. Okay, very simple, but just the love was there. The section there with the babies is run by nurses, and they're good ladies, but they're really strict. And they would throw me out. I mean, the kid didn't want to stop playing, and I didn't want to leave, but they have to do their work. And one night they threw me out way earlier than I thought they had to. It was my last day of visiting. And they made me go, and he just cried. The kid cried for 2 hours. I stood outside the nursery, and I was crying myself. I'm like, because I couldn't go in there, and I knew he just wanted to bond with me. Yeah, that hurt a lot. I met this boy and his blind grandpa in Matagalpa in Nicaragua. I loved watching them. I loved the fact that this kid and grandpa had so much love between them. You could just see how much affection there was between the two of them. And the boy was so attentive to his grandpa and spent time with him and got him food and helped him around. And then he, more importantly, I guess what just as importantly, he would go out and beg for money to support the two of them. And it just really captured me how much love was there between the two and how hard life must be between them. And that night I thought about them all night, and the next day I said, you know what, I want to find a way to help them. And so I went down to the plaza. They would hang out when the boy would beg in the plaza right in front of the church. And he wasn't there. They weren't there. And I spent all morning looking for them on side streets, and I inquired at the church, and I said, the blind man and the boy that stays with him and helps him, do you know them? I mean, I'd like to send money. And I even went to the priest at the church and said, I'll send money to you so you could give it to them. Didn't even know who he was. Didn't even know who the two of them were. And, oh God, that bothered me. because I had been with them the day before. They were there in that plaza the whole day. And here, this last day of our trip there, I couldn't find them. And I couldn't do the good that I wanted to do, just to be able to make their lives just a little bit easier. I hold them in my heart just like I hold that little boy in my heart. And all these stories I'm going to share with you, that's really all I can do is pray for them, because I wasn't able to do something for them. People who know that I travel to a lot of different countries and see a lot of different things, will sometimes ask me, what is one of the most upsetting things you've ever seen? And I would have to say it happened in Cochabamba, Bolivia. One night I couldn't sleep, and I was just like kind of walking around in the streets, getting some fresh air. And I saw a young girl. She could have been more than like 13, 14, 15 years old, with her baby on her back. And she was staggering through the streets, this girl. From working with the street youth there, I knew that what was happening was that she was strung out on glue. Many of the people on the streets, they sniff a glue called shoe glue, and the glue that you might put to reattach the sole of your shoe, it has a substance in it that will get you high. And people sniff that glue in order to not feel cold and not feel hungry. And this girl was just staggering. She was clearly stoned out. And the baby just wouldn't stop crying. And finally, I see her take the little container of glue that she kept under her sleeve. And I saw her take that container of glue and to give it to her baby. And that got me so upset. To get this baby hooked on the glue. And to have such a sad life that she was lost. I'm not judging her, but she was so lost, and the baby was going to suffer because of that. And what am I going to do? She don't know me. I don't know her. There's no way I could step in there and get involved in that situation. And sometimes in these countries I visit, that will happen, that there's just nothing you can do or say. You see in someone suffering and you can't do anything. Maybe the most extreme case of that was in Honduras. I went to Honduras to just really see, why is it that so many children from Honduras, their parents were sending them over the border to the United States and taking great chances, and what must it be like down there to be so bad that you would let your kid do that? And when I was there in Honduras, I saw this young man by himself under a tree in a small village, and he was crying. And he had the most sad, hopeless, despairing face on I've ever seen on somebody. He looked like he'd been crying for days. He was crying right then and there. And I felt so bad for him. But I also, like I told you, I know hardly any Spanish. And, he doesn't know me. But I couldn't let it go. So I went to the people hosting me. And I said, you see that kid over there under the tree? I think something really bad must have happened to him. Do any of you know what it was? And can we do anything to help him? And that's when I found out. His story is that his older brother had just been brought back to the family by one of the drug gangs in a plastic bag, chopped up in little pieces. What could I say? Even if I knew Spanish, what could I say to console him? What could I do except to pray for him? It hurts to be in that situation. Not as much as it hurt him to be suffering like that, but it can happen. And then there will always be this little boy. I met him at the Children's Hospital in Lima, Peru. We spent an afternoon just, as volunteers, just being there to play with children, greet children, try and cheer everybody up, bring a little Jesus love to them. And I met this kid. He was in a crib in a remote area of the hospital by himself, and he was just looking so sad. And he also had his, as you can see from the picture, his face burned, or a birthmark or something. And I always feel for someone like that. I had horrible acne as a teenager, and I know what it's like to have a face that you feel is repulsive to yourself and to everybody. So I made it a point to, like, I want to be with this kid, spend some time with this kid, try and cheer him up. And I was able to. I used the camera, the video camera that I had, and we had a lot of fun until it was time to leave. And I felt so bonded with him in a short period of time, and he was enjoying interacting with me so much that I had this feeling of, like, I shouldn't leave here. But I was responsible for a group of 14 volunteers. There's no way I could go to them and say, tell your parents that Tony had to stay in Peru and abandon you. I knew that wasn't responsible. But I also feel badly that I didn't ask anybody at the hospital. Does he have someone? Does he have someone that he's precious to, that loves him? Is there somebody in his life that does that for him, that lets him know that he brings them joy and wants to bring joy to him? And I didn't ask. I didn't ask. Part of me didn't ask because I had this feeling about the people that worked at that hospital, and I guess a part of me figured, they probably won't know. But I think I really didn't ask because I was afraid that they might say, no, he doesn't have anybody. And I sometimes kick myself for not asking. And, well, I know I'll see him again in heaven. And I hope he forgives me for that. But I have kept him in my heart and prayed for him. And, sometimes that's all you can do. When you feel like you fail at love, or you just don't have the chance to do what's needed, you can always pray. You can always trust that God has a plan. Maybe you're the one that's meant to be the healing presence in someone's life, the loving presence of God in their life, and sometimes it's meant to be someone else. And so you trust that God knows what he's doing, and let him take it from there. But let yourself feel that pain inside. It triggers you to be a more loving person in the future. Yes, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Baby. Baby. Look at that. Yes, see. See. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You. Baby. Yes. Baby. Action tips for the good that you cannot do. Don't close up. Don't let the failure to respond in a situation, or there just not being an opportunity, cause you to close up and say, this is too painful, I'm not going to care anymore. Don't ever do that. Hold on to your faith. Don't beat yourself up. And know that in God's way, in God's time, that person will be cared for. What you can do is remember them. You can pray for that person. Sometimes you're meant to be the instrument that God works through, and sometimes not. But if you're praying for them and you keep them in your heart, then the goodness that comes into their life that you wish for, you really are a part of. You can look forward to heaven and seeing them again and listening to their story about how their life unfolded. And know that you are helping them on a spiritual level when you pray. I can't emphasize that enough, okay? That you trust in God, that He's going to get it right. Don't lose faith that God is abandoned. Don't look into it as far as God has abandoned them. He has not. Just because it didn't work out with you and them, He's still there. And never give up on the power of love. The connection of love and prayer is powerful. Amen.